I really started to dig into what it would look like to have actual success. And I started doing things very differently. And as I did, I actually started to find that I actually did have 95% success rates at 1 year by changing things and doing them the way that I am.
All right, welcome to another edition of Living Boldly with Purpose, and I'm Dr. B. I am your host, and thinking about a world. How do you say your name? Meridy? Meridy?
Yes, Meridy.
Okay. Meridy. Okay, I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly because I heard it in my head and it sounded like that. I just wanted to make sure it came out of my mouth the way that I said it. And so, Meridy, we were just talking about how much time, or when we talk about the weather, we talk about different parts of the world that we're from, and how much it affects us as we're doing stuff. And in this day and age, I don't know that weather. I mean, it matters. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter because we talk about it all the time. There are portions of our newscast, there are apps, there's all these things that tell us what our weather is going to be. There's nothing we could do about it. But yet we, other than, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wear heavier clothes.
I mean, it's the only job you can have that you can be wrong all the time and not get fired.
And not get fired. You can absolutely. And so, how much we run our lives around this thing called the weather. And you're like, well, I live in a house and it's, I'm fortunate, I guess. I mean, there are folks that are unhoused, and but me being able to do that, I turn the heater on, and in the summer I turn the air conditioner on, and and I live in this comfortable environment because as we're pursuing our dreams and our goals, we just kind of adapt to it. But I don't know, Meridy, if you have a mom like I have, but I call her the weather lady because she always calls me to tell me what the weather is going to be like, and I'm like, thanks, Mom. I used to just go out and look. And here in Colorado, our weather does change a lot. And so we'll have the morning, it'll be snowing, and then by the afternoon, it might be sunny. So it's like, they say if you want the weather to change, wait 10 minutes and it's going to make a difference.
I feel like that's us in Canada as well. It's pretty crazy. Our weather, we can wake up in the morning and it be -20, and I'm talking Celsius. And then by the afternoon, it's, +1, and sunny, and so it just really changes. That being said, no, I don't even speak to my mother, so she certainly doesn't call me with the weather.
Oh, gotcha. Well, and then my father-in-law now, he just moved to Colorado from California, where it's pretty much Southern California. It's pretty much the same weather all the time, and so he moved there from here. So now he's starting to tell us what the weather is going to be like as he watches it on the news. And it's just so funny to me. I guess cute or just funny that, that somebody's got to tell you, what it's going to be and how it's going to be and what you're going to be able to do as you're doing it. And so it struck me funny. It's like a question that sometimes we ask each other, what is it like? And I actually asked you, is it cold? And you said it's, today is not too bad. Today's, at 0, but it's not too bad.
I feel like as soon as people say Canada, they're like, oh, it's cold up there, hey?
Exactly.
That being said, we literally from season to season, we change a good, and again, I talk in Celsius, we change 70 degrees. So we can go from -30, where I am alone, never mind where my dad is, but where I am, it can go from where we were just about -30 to we go to +45. So that's a 75-degree change in a year's period that we see. And a lot of times we will see, 20 degrees change in a day.
Well, last week when we talk about Fahrenheit here, last week we were at 2 or 3 degrees, and today we're at 70. So within a week, it's just, it's like, yes. I'm wearing shorts today. And the other thing, I think where weather really comes into play, when I think about snow and cold and that kind of stuff, the sun is what's important, and being able to get the vitamin D and getting that for happiness. when I think of places like London, or I think of places like Seattle, or places, where there's not a lot of sun for, increased periods of time. I've been to Chicago in the winter where it's just this cloud, or Detroit. And then I start to feel like
Sad.
sad. I feel depressed.
Yep.
I feel like, how do I get up and want to move on and do stuff? And
So they say that because of our weather in Canada and because of how high we are compared to the equator and all the things, that 98% of our populations get seasonal affliction disorder, which is sad. And it is literally just that. It makes you incredibly sad for the duration of the winter, for sure. I definitely notice it. Last month was a hard month for me. Trying to getting out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's dark until 8 a.m. And then you leave your work at 4:30 or 5 o'clock and it's dark. There's not a lot of daylight that we have, and it's really sad. And then on top of that, it's so cold that you're not going outside when it is sunny. So a lot of us tan up here in the cold.
Well, I think like with Canada and Alaska too, where it's dark, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do we get? I feel like we're all part of like Kal-El and Superman and stuff, but we all need our yellow sun.
Yeah. I want to live either the equator, the north, or the south, because they say a lot of places in Alaska have like 22 to 24 hours of sunlight or daylight.
Yes,
and we drop down to having like less than 6 hours at certain points and things like that. So like the equator would be ideal for me, where it stays the same, no matter what.
It stays the same. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that part of our conversation. It is important, and it can determine how we deal with our purpose. And so, and being able to get out and do things and help others and serve others and all the wonderful things that we do. Meridy, I wanted you to tell your story, and I can't wait to hear it, because, the different things that we do, no matter where we're at, it is just so neat to see folks that are moving forward, that are doing things, that are helping people, that are making a difference and an impact. And so you can start anywhere you want in your story. It can be from your mama's womb to up to now, or anywhere in between. And then we'll just chop it up after that. So thank you for being on today.
Well, thank you for having me. We were talking about this too, and how my story, we try not to compare traumas or compare pain, but my story isn't as, like, it was sad, it was painful for me, but I know people whose pain, again, trying not to compare traumas, I look at and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that that's something you experienced. So my mom is a bipolar. She is unmedicated, and she just is not mentally well. She's quite ill mentally. So again, like I said to you, her and I no longer speak to each other. I'm in my 40s. We stopped speaking in my late 30s after she tried to sue me. But as a child, she was incredibly violent. She would hit us, and not just, like, here's a wooden spoon or here's your spanking. She would push me down the stairs. I watched her literally you remember the old phones that we had with the actual headset and had the cable attached to it? I would start getting in trouble. My sister would hear it, and she's 15 or 13 months older than me. And she would run up and like interject herself into the situation, because I've always been a very petite person. And my mom, 5'9" and not a small person. So my sister would hear us starting to fight, or her yelling at me, and my sister would come up and get involved. And then my mom would beat the shit out of her, excuse my language, but she would beat her. And I have this one vision that I just can never let go of, because I remember chasing. My mom was like, she pushed me down the stairs. I landed in the cat litter box. She went after my sister. When I, got up out of the cat litter box, I went running in to chase them into my sister's room. And my mom had grabbed the phone and was doing a motion like this and hammering my sister with this phone in her head. And so I ripped the phone out of her hand, and my sister's room was always a disaster. And so my mom just found the next best thing. And at the time, it was the Keds shoes that we used to wear. It was the white one. And she grabbed it and started beating my sister with that. And I ripped that out of her hand. And then she found the next best thing and started beating her with that. And it just felt like it just went on forever and ever. And so my mom's not like a rational person. And my dad was kind of absent. He just worked all the time, and he would often work through the night because then people weren't bothering him and he could get some stuff done. And so, but at the same time, my dad loved me. I was his favorite child. There's no bullshitting there. I was his favorite. And I always felt like my dad had my back. His friends really liked me. And so it just was like, it also created a lot of issues between my sister and I, because my mom liked her more, but beat the crap out of her. My dad liked me more, but, she didn't necessarily see that side. And as we've become adults and we've worked through a lot of our traumas and like really talked about these traumas, she even said to me at one point, I don't believe like you keep talking about, how you were daddy's little girl and all these things. She's like, but dad was never there. And I was like, but we've been through retreats where like she told her story and I interrupted and said, I just have to say, I don't know what house she lived in. And the woman said, what do you mean, Meridy? Please explain. And I was like, that's not the house that I lived in. The house she's telling you about, I didn't live there. I don't know what she's talking about. And she said, this is such a beautiful thing for everyone to learn, because two children having two totally different perspectives, they did live in the same house, but they were treated differently, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. So my sister said, I'm having trouble with this whole thing with you being daddy's girl, because it's not what I saw. Like dad wasn't around. And I was like, I get that. And then she had a conversation actually last year with my mom about me and hers relationship. And for the first time ever, my mom admitted that there was jealousy on her part against me, because once I was born, my dad said something along the lines of, I've created a perfect human. And then his attention went towards me, and my mom's jealousy was that I stole my father from her. And so I've told my sister this story multiple times. I'm like, she has hated me since I was born. I don't know what her problem is. I don't know why she hates me so much, but like, she hates me, dude. Like, she hates me. And that's why she's done all these things to me, but never done them to you. And my sister kept saying, like, I just don't see this view you see. I'm sorry. I would love to, but I just am struggling to see what you see, because this is not the case. And then all of a sudden she has this conversation with my mom, and my mom says, in fact, yeah, I did hate her and I was jealous of her because she stole my husband. And when my sister told me, I was just like, whoa, wait a second. Like, I was a baby. I didn't steal anyone. I didn't do it on purpose. Right. And I mean, I remember being like, as a kid, there was always this, like, I think I was 3 and I was wearing a dress and I was like prancing around the house all pretty. And one of my mom's friends said, oh my God, she's just the cutest. You should get her to be a model. And my mom looked over at me and said, you need to sit down and shut up. You're not all that. And I remember this like little girl just like shrinking inside of herself and being like, oh my God. But my dad's friends would always be like, you're just the cutest. And, I'd go get them coffee and they'd give me $5. But if my sister went and gave them coffee, they'd give her a loonie. And growing up, my grandmother had a store. And if we were both there, people would be like, oh, Meridy, you're so pretty. And I mean, I'm like, ugly 10-year-old. And my sister would be standing beside me and they'd be like, oh yeah, you're pretty too, Lynn. But oh my God, why haven't they put her in modeling and just all these things? And so it's been a very interesting healing journey doing it with my sister beside me, working through our own shit, because she took the abuse from my mom for me. I would then unconsciously start fights with her so that she would beat me up, because that's all she knew. She just knew that when she was angry, you got violent. And so she would beat me up, but now she's not the only one being abused in the household. And so there was a lot of like, especially now as we look back at it, because of course your memory is not reliable.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So we go back on that stuff and we sit there and we talk about it. And it's just so interesting because our perspectives are on such completely different spectrums, even though we're talking about the same situation. And so there was no alcohol in our family. Like my dad and my mom were both, I'm allergic. My brother doesn't drink very much at all, because like we all have a tendency to drink a little bit and then puke a lot. So my sister, on the other hand, became an alcoholic. She became, she calls herself a blankaholic because she is an addict, period. So if you give her too much, if you give her the permission to sit and drink, she will drink herself to death. If you were to give her cocaine, she'd probably do it. She didn't get into it because she knew she'd get addicted to it. Work, anything to not feel feelings is really what it came down to for her. And so she calls herself a blankaholic. And for us, she's the only addict in the family. Now she's been sober, I want to say almost 5 years.
Okay, good.
Because she's also a sexaholic. Because what better way to make yourself feel really good, really sexy, really pretty, really attention on me entirely than sex? And so she just kind of had this whole different thing that I had. Mine was the opposite. She, excuse my language, she would just give her vagina away just because she could, and then she'd get attention. Whereas I still to this day have not even slept with 20 people, and I'm in my 40s. So there's a lot of opposites that we have done, and yet we're best friends. So my sister, I feel like, is the reason that I am the way I am and that I'm so strong. And she's now starting to come into her own because it's so interesting. She was the one who stood in front of me and protected me. And yet now she doesn't speak her truth. She doesn't, stand up for herself. She doesn't do these things. So it's just such an interesting relationship that the two of us have. But I'm grateful for it because at least I have someone who's got my back.
Yeah. So have you guys both been married and have any children or anything, or is it just?
Yeah. So she was married. It's so funny. We both married men named Ron.
Okay.
She had her first child. She got pregnant at 19, had her first child at 20. That became my first child as well. And then I got pregnant. I got married and I got pregnant. My first and her second are 3 months apart.
Okay.
And then my daughter is the youngest one out of the two of us. And now my brother has kids, but he's 7 years younger than I am. So he has a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Okay.
So they're very different because my sister has a 25-year-old, and then we have a 23-year-old, and then we have a turning 22-year-old.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah. And now, did your brother experience the same kind of abuse?
Oh God, no. Oh God, no. He was the favorite. My mom did everything she could to keep him because she knew how important he was to my dad. Because being the boy in the family and stuff like that. So she did everything that she could to keep him away from my brother. My brother and him have an okay relationship right now. But he definitely did not. He was never, ever abused, ever.
So now what, you grow up, you have your babies, you're married, and then you decide life is going to be life. What has that been like? You're in your 40s now, so somewhere between 25 and 40, you've done other things.
Oh my goodness.
When you left home, I guess, because eventually, I don't know how old you were when you finally left, but it sounds like
my parents got divorced finally when we were 16. I left my home I was just over 7 or just about 18. Okay. I moved in with my ex-husband who was I lost my virginity to him, and then I had married him and had 2 kids with him. We spent about 9 years together. I was still in high school when we met. And then him and I ended up divorcing. One of the things here is when I was 11 years old, my sister was 12, and she had started this smoking. And she would give me the cigarettes. Now, she had to go out of her way to get these cigarettes. It was a big deal. So when I smoked them, if I smoked and went, she'd be like, don't waste it. And so one of her tricks was I'd take a puff and she'd punch me in the stomach. And when you get punched in the stomach, you go, she's like, that's how you smoke.
Wow.
I started smoking at 11, and I didn't quit until I was about 19. Okay. And then I quit using Zyban, which was a pill that they gave you. It didn't work great, but it helped me to get off of them. And then I was what I always call myself a downwind smoker. So what I did was I would see you smoking or smell you smoking, and I'd be like, you should quit smoking. You're gross. But I was jealous and I wanted to smoke. And then I stayed quit for a few years, had both my kids, all the things. And then when my ex-husband and I got divorced, I was like, my middle finger to him was watch me smoke. Now, tell me that makes any sense, because I'm drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die. And so I started smoking. I smoked for about 3 years and it was just gross. And I needed to quit. So I got on all the pills, all the patches, all the gums. Nothing worked. Posted on my Facebook and said, somebody help me. I need to quit smoking. A friend of mine posted, you need to try cold laser therapy. I was like, okay, I'm in. So I talked to her. She actually had started smoking again. And so I was like, you're recommending something, but you're smoking. And she's like, I made a choice. I chose to start smoking again. So it's not about the treatment. And if I ever choose to quit again, that's where I'll go. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. So I went down, I had this treatment. It was about 3 hours from my home. But I was going to a concert. So I thought, what a better place and time to quit smoking.
Yeah.
So I have this treatment sitting in this woman's chair. She gave me no information, just told me sit down, starts poking me all over the place, and then goes, okay, you're done. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, I was like, now what? And she said, well, now you don't smoke again. And I was like, oh, just that quick, hey? I got in my car and I drove home for 3.5 hours and I did not touch a cigarette. I did not want a cigarette. I didn't think about a cigarette. And I was like, this is magical. But the guy in the car with me was like, you keep rolling down your window and patting the center console. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, not once have I even thought about smoking. So how can you say that? And he's like, for real. He's like, I keep seeing you. You roll the window down first, which you did every time you would light a cigarette. He said, then you start patting around on the center console. And when you don't find it, you just go back to driving. And I was like, so all my habits are still there.
Habits there, but you just don't have the craving.
No craving and no thoughts. And I learned over time of the last 14 years of my life where I have really focused on what I'm on addiction, period. That like the habits are major, but it's the fact that the stomach communicates with the brain, screaming bloody murder to you that you need to smoke. And it takes 5 days for those bugs to die. And a lot of times in that 5 days, people will go to other things. Food, sugar is major in any addict, whether it is a smoker, an alcoholic. Alcoholics are the worst for this because their body, you turn alcohol into sugar inside you, right? So they go straight to sugar, and then they're candy addicts. It's crazy. If you talk to an addict and ask them if they eat a lot of candy, they'll tell you more often than not, yes. Wow. And it's because sugar releases massive amounts of dopamine. So this is why we get addicted to these things. And so it was just such an interesting process that I went through to learn that like the reason I still have these habits, but my brain shut it off is because of the endorphins. So I quit smoking for 5 years. It was wonderful. And then all of a sudden I am in my backyard. Everyone is smoking. And I'm like, just give me one of those. Bad move. Started smoking again. So I went down, I had another treatment, and I bought the business, basically the training and the lasers. And the lady and I had this conversation where she said, like she was 77 years old. And she said, I'm going to a couple more years of just doing it here. So don't practice in Surrey, but then you can do whatever you want with it. And I was like, okay. And so I brought the training that I had done home, and I found I was getting, what everyone else was claiming. So if you look at a lot of these cold laser therapy companies, they're like, we have 99% success rates the day of treatment. We have 84 to 95% success rates. Now that's a pretty big jump in my opinion.
Of course it is. That's huge.
Right? That's 10%. That's a big deal. That's
50 out of 100 or 1 out of 100, right?
Right? Well, and not just that, but the other thing is if it's 85%, where is this 10% coming from? And so what I found is the reason they say that is because usually around 6 weeks, they've got between 95%, but by the time we get to, around 6 months, we're down to 85% for sure. Okay. And then it just continues to lower from there. And so I started really doing research. I started experimenting on people with their permission, and I documented it all. It has now been lost in a fire. And then it was before I started really working in computer stuff at the time. So it was all documented on paper because it was just easier to sit with a client than to sit and enter it into a computer. And I just started to find different timing, different sequencing, different lasers, and then not just doing what everyone else is doing in the way that they methodically do it, because businesses make money by repeated business. I found that if I want people to actually quit, I needed to do things differently than everyone else. But if I get you to quit, you're not coming back.
You're not coming back. You're not, all you can do is refer. You can't.
But you know what? Referral is not only the best compliment, but it's usually how most businesses work.
Yeah.
So I thought, if you only quit for 6 months, you're gonna tell your friends exactly that. Well, I found something, but I only quit for 6 months. So you're not actually referring people to me. Those who were able to stay quit, fine. But there wasn't a lot of them that could stay quit. So I found probably 60% of people will be back within the first or within 6 to 9 months if they only have one treatment. And to me, that's not success. So I really started to like dig into what it would look like to have actual success. And I started doing things very differently. And as I did, I actually started to find that I actually did have 95% success rates at 1 year by changing things and doing them the way that I am. So after 3 months, it's really a choice you make. But if I can help you get to that 1 year point, you're going to do better. Now, I also then started really digging into this 1 year thing and what it is around the 1 year. Now, in heavier addictions, our brain takes 14 to 18 months to recover the brain chemical makeup. So when you use a substance for a long period of time, your brain chemicals are your physiological and chemical makeup of your brain change. And it takes your brain 14 to 18 months to recover to what it's considered as its new normal.
Okay.
So it takes that 14 to 18 months. Now, that 14 to 18 months, your dopamine levels are super low. All of your endorphins, serotonin, all of your endorphins, your bliss molecule, everything is super low. I don't know if you've ever been depressed, but in the times that I have been depressed, I have to tell you that everything in my life was harder. Everything.
Yeah.
I felt like I was looking through a fence like this at everything in my life. Everything felt more personal and more painful than when I wasn't depressed. So now we have people who are getting sober and having this major crash in emotional endorphins because our endorphins control how we feel.
Yeah.
We're having this major crash, and then we're told, okay, now you need to deal with your trauma because your trauma is really the reason you use. Your substance abuse is your solution to the pain you don't want to feel.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to get you sober. I'm going to make you sadder than you were when you first started using.
Gosh.
And I want you to deal with your trauma.
Yeah.
And then this is why people don't make it to a year, is because if we don't start to deal with that trauma, we're not going to be able to stop using in the first place. But now my brain isn't even functioning normal. So how is it that I'm supposed to get to that place? So it just became this whole thing. And I really started digging into it and how I could help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Laser Quit raises endorphin levels. That's the main thing that we do. And we do it using your own body. And so I found that if I treat people and get them to this 1 year point, I have tricked their brain into thinking that it's already got the fix. So now their brain already thinks it's normal, and I've taught it to release these endorphins at a normal level. So by the time they get to the recovery stage, they're already recovered. And their brain feels normal enough for them to be able to start working through some of this trauma. So we're actually giving people a chance at becoming sober and staying sober.
So I want to keep hearing, but I'm so curious now on how Laser Quit works, because when I think of like lasers, I think like LASIK. Like I have LASIK, I get my eyes, and you can really feel your burning and stuff. And I'm like, are you cutting somebody's throat, or you
No.
these lasers when you're.
This is so cool. So cold laser therapy is low level radiation combined with LED light. And now LED light is this red light therapy that you're hearing about. It's like become a trend right now. It's been around for years and years. It's not a trend, but it's been around for years and years. And people are now like, hey, look at all these benefits. So they've started to use the benefit of this red light therapy all over their body. So we use it in a very pointed form, and then we combine it with low level radiation. But we're using ancient Eastern medicine combined with modern Western medicine. And we combine the two, and we have a better outcome than you have individually with either one. So cold laser therapy based on acupuncture points, I guess you could say. So what it is there's meridians of energy that run through your body. We all know that Albert Einstein proved that energy is what we're made of. We're just a bunch of molecules vibrating.
Yeah.
Okay. So dig into the lower parts of those inside yourself, and there's energy meridians that run through your body. And if we can trigger certain spots that will trigger certain things to happen, what we do is we instruct your body to fix itself.
Okay.
Okay. So I like to take this right here and say, now, if you and I were to take the same antidepressant as an example, I could take it and be puking my guts out, and you could take it and be like, well, I don't notice anything, right? So pills, you did drugs, drinking, we all react very differently to everything because our body's energies are different, even though they're similar. So what we do is we base it on these acupuncture points. And basically, the people that work for me are the instructors to your body to fix itself. And your body knows better than anybody else. Your doctor doesn't know your body the way that your body knows your body.
Of course, yeah.
So we go in and we give your body instruction on how to fix itself and what we want it to do in that way.
Right.
So we give your body instruction to release these endorphins to make you feel better, which is a way to mask. So as someone who's addicted, whether it's smoking, drinking, it depends on what it is. We have, so for example, myself, I don't drink a lot of coffee, like almost none. Actually, I haven't drank coffee in a couple months now. I went off pop. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. So my endorphin levels, I do have a couple of businesses. So sometimes my endorphins are spiking, but for the most part, they do like a little wave throughout the day. When I smoked, that little wave peaked and then it slowly came down over the next, say, 30 or 40 minutes. And by about an hour, I wanted to smoke again so I could get that peak. And then it would come down again. What happens is we get this peak, and then when it crashes, it goes way below normal because you peaked it when your brain didn't need it to peak. So you go way below normal. And then we smoke again to get it back up. And then we go way below normal again. So it happens whether you're a smoker, whether you're a drugger, it doesn't matter what it is you use. This is how your endorphins in your brain work. Different levels of different endorphins based on whatever it is you're putting in your system.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is getting your body to release all of the endorphins at the same level as high as it possibly can. So it's not just addictions. We treat people with epilepsy, with autism, with ADHD. A lot of problems with kids with ADHD or ADD is that what you don't know about ADD is that dopamine levels are not released in their brain properly.
Okay.
So that ends up being an issue for them because that's what they're seeking, and that's why they can't stay focused. Dopamine is your motivator. It's your driver. It gets you to do things. Consistency and discipline is more important than dopamine. But people with ADHD and stuff like that, it's a dopamine level that's too low. So we treat these people to release dopamine, but we release all levels of endorphins at the same time. So we're releasing serotonin, the bliss molecule, which is the hardest word to say, anandamide. I think I just said it right. But we're releasing all of these different endorphins to make you feel good. And it masks or stops your brain from doing the crash of the use that you've got going on throughout the day. And so then people don't need to use.
Gotcha. So now you said that like the laser quit allows you it gives you some of those endorphins. It gives you, is it like you have like a little injection of endorphins, or I mean, what's it doing? Are you
just naturally energy meridians throughout the body?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So we basically focus mostly on your head, face, ears, hands. And we really focus on whatever is going to get us the best result. So with what I've done, I've studied a lot of the acupuncture spots. I've studied addiction and how it works. I'm actually in the process of working with a company that has a brain scanner so that we can prove what I'm saying is true.
Gotcha.
Because otherwise I'm going to have to do like an MRI or a CAT scan before and after, and that's like $2,500 each. And doing it on one person isn't going to be enough. So like, I need to get rich to do the science for this, if that's the case. But I'm starting to partner with this brain scanner company to be able to prove to everyone what I'm saying is how it works. But it's just this incredible release of endorphins. But instead of making you feel like, that's why if you use heroin versus drinking, there's a different outcome. You don't feel the same when you do the different things. And it's because they release different levels of different endorphins.
Gotcha.
So what laser does is it releases them all at the same level.
All at the same time. And so you say it's called cold laser, like cold outside, like is it a cold rock that you stick on? I mean,
nope. It's like a giant. I don't know if you did this. Do you remember going to like the fairs when you were a kid and they used to have those pencils that were like 18 inches long and like
Yeah,
real
yeah,
fat?
yeah.
Okay. Our laser's like that, only it's probably closer to 12 inches long and 12 inches long if you're a man. Um, um sorry, I can resist. But it's a little closer to 12 inches long. It's not quite as thick, and it just has it has minor battery powered. And they literally are, if they're used on the right spots, they create the outcome that we're looking for.
Cool. And is it? I mean, is it physically? Is it cold? Like to your?
You don't feel it for
Okay,
the
you
most
don't-
part. You just don't even feel it, and so that's the part where a lot of people get up and be like, "Well, I don't feel any different."
Gotcha.
And I'm like, I know, give it time. Because when I had my treatment, I felt nothing.
Yeah, because you said, "Are you done?" And like, when are we gonna do
Yeah,
it? And
she
so,
literally was like, okay, have a nice day. And I was like, what just happened?
wow.
I just gave you a whole bunch of money for nothing, lady. And then I went home and was like, oh, this is
But
weird.
like you said, the habits and everything were still part of just what you do because you do it, and it's kind of been, rote memory, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, habits are something you do unconsciously. You
Yeah.
have built such a routine around it that you don't even need to think to do these things. And so there is more to it than just the treatments. The treatments are one part of what we offer. We also offer coaching, which helps people to break habits, build new habits, create new routines, work on your trauma
Yeah.
so that we can actually get people sober and keep them sober.
Wow. Well, I kind of want to talk about addictions. I used to work at I used to run a couple different homeless, people in house shelters, and that was our biggest thing. And mine were, what do you call them? Sober living facilities, where which are really tough to do because of these addictions. And what I've kind of found is everybody has some type of, it seems like some type of addiction. I feel so fortunate in my life. I've never even tried to smoke anything. Not even tested it, tried
Good for
it.
you.
I don't drink alcohol. I did it one time when I was 18. Did not like the way it made me feel, and haven't had any drinks since. I don't do coffee because it's nasty. I don't think it tastes good. But I do candy, and candy is, so there's something that's in there that I need to get rid of or whatever. And so sometimes it's hard for me to understand, what people are going to till I just see how, when I have I have a couple pays now, and, they end up having to go, we got housing for them, but then it'll be a sober living place. And then they keep getting kicked out of the sober living place and all that. And so, I mean, does everybody could utilize some of this treatment? Because we all have, I would love not to.
Everyone, people with PTSD, people with anxiety, depression, pain. I can't even tell you how many things that we can help you with. There was something interesting you said to me that just like very much triggered something for me. So you said, I don't drink coffee because I think it tastes like do you realize that most of our addictions start with that exact attitude and we push through? Don't know why. I have yet to find a reason why, but nobody I know enjoyed the first time they got drunk, the first time they smoked a cigarette, the first time they got high, the first time they got drunk, the first time they drank coffee. I don't know anybody who was like, oh my God, the first time I had coffee, it was delicious. Most people are like, it was disgusting, but I pushed through.
And because we want to be the norms of feeling like we're part of a group.
Because of the society that we live in.
Wow. Yeah, because when I thought that with beer, I'm like, people always tell me that. I'm like, this is the most nasty stuff you could ever put. Well, I had to acquire a taste. I'm like, why would you want to acquire a taste for something that makes you fat and it makes
you're acquiring a taste for a poison that you're voluntarily putting in your body. You're putting ethanol into yourself. Tell me how this makes sense. Would you eat asbestos? Because it's the same thing.
Wow.
It is a class 1 carcinogen. It is a number 1 reason women are getting breast cancer. There is so much science coming out right now about how dangerous alcohol is. Do you remember back in the day, they used to say, like 1 glass of red wine a day is really good for you. No alcohol whatsoever is good for you. And I actually just did a reel recently that the reason that we stumble, the reason we make bad decisions, the reason that you puke 8 hours after you ate and it's the same food coming up when you're drinking is because every system in your body shuts down to get rid of it. Your digestive system shuts down. Your brain starts pulling things. The reason you get tingly fingers and hands is because your brain is stopping so much blood flow to your arms and legs because it's spending so much energy trying to detox your system of the crap you've just put in it. So there is so much information out there. And now I'm like you. Not quite like you. You drank once at 18. I tell people maybe 25 to 30 times in my entire life. My kids use me as the alcohol detector is what they call me. So they'll like get a drink and then they'll be like, this doesn't taste right. Will you taste it? And I'm like, because I really don't like alcohol. I'll take a sip and I'm like, no, it's fine. It doesn't have alcohol. It's just whatever the juice is. Or I'm like, yep, 100% that has alcohol in it.
Starting to ferment or something like that. Wow. Well, and then like, people always say, well, I have to do it because it takes the edge off. I'm like, what edge? What are we?
Like, folks.
Well, and I think about the amount of money that is spent. We want to,
You just want to get me fired up today, don't you?
Oh, I do.
Because I got to tell you, I did scientific research on this too. And in Canada, smoking taxes alone, this is going to blow your mind. In Canada, we do not have the population that you have in the United States.
Yeah.
But in Canada, our government on only cigarettes makes $50 million per day in taxes.
Wow.
That is only on smoking. I didn't even get into alcohol because they changed.
No.
There's so many different percentages.
Yeah, the government, not $50 million a day. You can't stop. We got to keep putting it in stuff. We got to keep advertising.
That doesn't include marijuana. That does not include alcohol, nor any of the other taxes that they charge on anything else.
Wow. I know
that is
alcohol
smoking taxes only. Think about this. In Canada, we have reserves. I'm sure you guys have lots of those too. I don't know how your guys' reserves work, but here in Canada, our reserves are not taxed. So natives, First Nations, can purchase cigarettes for $3 a pack. Do you know what a white person pays?
A 7 or 8?
20.
No.
$17 difference.
Wow.
That's taxes only.
Wow.
And that is it. Now, that being said, that is a brand name cigarette. That's not the cheaper cigarettes because the cheaper cigarettes are like 17. But do you see where their $50 million is coming from?
Wow.
Yeah. And it gets me fired up because I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about Trudeau. And our government has done nothing but make a disaster of our lives for at least the last 5 years. I'm going to say forever, but for the last 5 years, they've made a disaster of our life. And you're taking $50 million a day. How much of that are they giving away? And then on top of that, we're taxed so heavily on our income and then on everything we buy and then on our homes. And then on, like, I had a client come in and he was telling me, because I also have a bookkeeping business and it's tax season for us. And he came in and he said, I just got a Fortis bill. And I was like, okay. And he said, and Fortis is our gas, like our natural gas bill. Mm-hmm. And he said, I spent $30 on natural gas. That's what my natural gas was. And I was like, that's excellent. I pay $60 for my tiny little office that I have at the office. And he says, no, because that $30 bill that should have been $30, maybe $50 at the end, he said it was $198 because of their taxes, levies, and fees.
Whoa.
$30 in actual gas usage.
Well, I just went on to ChatGPT because you were telling me about Canada, and I asked it, how much does the U.S. collect on alcohol taxes per day and per hour? In this is 2023, the U.S. federal government collected approximately $11 billion in alcohol taxes. This is an average about $30.1 million per day, roughly $1.25 million per hour.
I need that job.
Oh, I know. I was thinking we can't stop people from drinking and stuff because
this is why the government hates people like me.
Oh my gosh.
They don't want my services actually offered, because if I provide you with a long-term permanent solution, where's theirs?
Yeah.
I've just stolen $30 million a day. And there's no way I'm getting that $30 million. No matter how many people I help.
I mean,
so when they hear about me, they try shutting people like me down.
Yeah.
Or they try to minimize what we do. So I've tried doing scientific studies. There's all these companies in Canada and in the States that do studies to help, the scientific studies, the medical studies, all these things. I cannot get a single person to be interested because they fund them in Canada. And I have been turned down, I'm going to say 11 to 15 times in the various companies that I have gone to and said, I'd like to do a study. We need to do some kind of brain scan to show before and after. And I can show you all the study we need to do. We can do a blind study. We can do it without me. We can do placebo included. Like we can do all these things, but I need to do a study. And I have been denied at every corner. And they have said to me, if you want to do these studies, the money's coming out of your pocket.
Wow. Yeah, because they don't want you to.
No, why would they want, not just that, but how is someone who doesn't drink, okay? I'm not trying to get into conspiracy here, but someone who doesn't drink, someone who doesn't do drugs, someone who doesn't do any of these things, their brains, and no, guys, I'm not being offensive, I'm being scientific. Their brains are functioning at capacity. So they think more. They're not going to just go with the flow. They're not going to be a sheep. No offense, not trying to be rude.
No, yes.
But they're not going to go with the group. They're going to be off individually doing themselves. They're probably the ones who did not get shots. They're probably the ones who stood up against things they don't believe in. They didn't just go with whatever it was that was taught to them. They questioned. So another example I'd love to give you guys, just because I love science.
I love it. Thank you.
So there's a study done that it takes 8 days for your brain to recover from 1 day of drinking. And I don't mean a whole day of drinking. You go out drinking on a Friday night, you have 2 glasses of wine, your brain chemicals do not recover for 8 days. So if you drink again on the following Saturday, you did not live your best self for that entire week, even if you didn't drink all week long. So if you say, oh, I only party on the weekend, your entire week is suffering because it takes 8 days for your brain to recover. You might feel fine in 1 or 2, but your brain doesn't go back to normal for 8 days. So if you start drinking again on day 7, and then you start to teach your brain a new normal, which is every 5 days or so, you're going to see me drunk and it's going to screw up my chemicals. And I'm just going to maintain those chemicals. Your brain goes, I'm going to maintain those chemicals for you. I'm not going to let them crash too far because that will mess you up. Yeah.
Man, it just as it's blowing my mind you like you say 8 days, I'm thinking, man, I have to go 8 days without candy before it goes. And sometimes
Really?
I'll go for a month or whatever, and then
So,
but as soon as I have one, huh?
Yeah. So do you see how the feeling that you have thinking, if I said to you, okay, so we're going to make an agreement today that you're going to stop. Dr. B, today is the day. No candy. We need to make a minimum of 8 days. Do you feel that feeling inside you that's like, oh, no? You're having the most mild reaction compared to someone who has to stop drugs, alcohol, smoking. There is this major anxiety that takes over them because they don't know how to deal with anything without those coping mechanisms. Now, if I worked with you, I gave you your treatment, and then we talked, I'd be able to teach you how to cope without the sugar. We could probably almost eliminate sugar from but we need to teach you how to cope without it, because for you, that's that edge. You're like, ooh, candy. You get that little rush, that sugar high. Doesn't feel so bad, except sugar kills, just saying. Just saying. Causes major inflammation. There's so many things. But if we tell you you need to come off of it, you get this slight flutter in your chest where you're like, ooh, that's scary. Imagine that times 100 for someone who's got to now not just stop using, but now I have to feel all the pain of being raised by an asshole, by dealing with the trauma that's going to surface because I was never enough, because I was never loved, because I was never accepted, because I'm a crappy person, because I'm awful, even though none of those things are true. They're things we tell ourselves.
Well, all the excuses we make for ourselves, right? All the reasons that so we can be numb to what our real lives are.
I love this thing. It says the art of rationalization is simply the best way to make excuses.
Wow. The art, I'm writing that one down.
Because literally the art of rationalization, I'll sit here and I read this story that justified it. And it was about this fox who wanted grapes off a grapevine. And he saw these ones up top and they looked beautiful because, of course, no other animals had gotten these grapes and he wanted those grapes. So he started trying to jump to the grapes and he was trying to do everything he could to get the grapes. And then he was like, you know what? I bet you those grapes are bad. That's why they're up there. They're horrible grapes. And so that he started rationalizing in his head that he didn't even need those grapes. Those grapes weren't any good anyways, so that he could get away from it. Think about how many times we do that in our lives. I fought for that thing and it didn't work out for me. So now I'm just going to go the other way because that just wasn't good enough anyways. Except if you had kept fighting, that probably would have been the best thing to ever happen to you in your life. That probably would have been the best grape that guy had ever had in his life.
I know. So again, the art of rationalization is the
art of rationalization is the art of rationalization is the genius of making excuses. That was the quote.
Okay. I got it. Well, and here's what I think about, like right now, we're in this world that when we think about social media, right? And so there's entertainment, social media, there's education, social media, kind of like what we're trying to do right now is education, right? But so many people spend so much time on the the entertainment side of it for the exact reason, right? So that they can be numb to the lives that they had, and they'll scroll and they'll scroll and they'll scroll, and then you get the dopamine of laughter, whatever it is that keeps happening, and then all of a sudden you're addicted to 4 or 5, 6 hours of entertainment online that is just taking you away from your world.
Social media is also an addiction.
Oh my gosh. It is. I don't know if cold laser can help you with.
It can, if you can believe it. Now, the 3 hardest addictions to deal with, I always talk to people about this because I'm like, people will be like, oh, well, food is my addiction. I totally understand that as well. So food, sex, and your phone are going to be the 3 hardest addictions to stop. And the reason is because you have to still use them in order to function in life. And now you have to become a conscious user.
Yes.
So my sister, it was the first time I had ever experienced this. She actually used sex. Anytime her and her spouse would fight, anytime she felt like she was having a rough day, things were, someone said something nasty about her, maybe someone commented on social media about her, she started to feel like crap. She went straight to her spouse and would try to like get it on. And her partner that she has now, she's married, he actually said to her, we're just going to stop for a second. Can we talk about whatever it is that's going on here that's making you act the way you are? Because it's a lot more of an aggressive, he said, it's like a, I need this, instead of a, hey, baby, I love you. Let's show each other love.
Yeah.
And so he had to slow her down and be like, what are you trying to cover up right now? Let's talk about that. And then we can totally get it on, but we need to talk about what you're trying to cover up right now. You get bad news, you get sad, you start being like, oh my God. And then you start looking for something to run to.
So on the fun one, like so we got sex, you have food, food has got to be, because you have to eat to live,
You
right?
need it
So
to
you got
live.
to bring it in there, and then you instead of living to eat instead of eating to live.
Yes.
And so that gets tough for a lot of people, that the taste and how it feels. But then like on our phones, I'm thinking, well, how do you? Because you got to use it. I'm not a big entertainment person, but my wife is, right? So she loves scrolling. Then she shows me videos. I could go all day and like, great, I mean, but I see so many, like we go to restaurants now, we go to places and we just
all you see is this. Nobody talks to each other anymore.
Oh my gosh, and it can't be the outside stimulus is so much better than the conversation or the relationship you get to have, right? I mean, how do we?
So what it is social media things give you a dopamine hit immediately, which is why we're so addicted to them. And when you challenge someone, go 30 days without your phone, they lose their mind. Now, when I go to Mexico and I don't have a phone for a week, like it is the best experience ever. I love it. I mean, the day before I start coming back, I get a little like anxious about, oh my God, I'm going to be so overwhelmed when I do get it. Yeah. But being without it is lovely. So what I had to do, I didn't even think I was addicted. I was like, it is what it is. My screen time at the time, I'm going to say, was like 4.5 to 5 hours a day. Not a big deal. I run my business from it. It's not that big of a deal. And then the way that I actually became a conscious, I had to deal with it in some way. And now I challenge myself with every addiction that I end up with. Like I was having a single pop, sugarless pop every day. And I was like, okay, I'm going 30 days without this because this doesn't seem right. So the way I deal with those things is I need to make sure I'm capable of getting into the shoes of the clients that I deal with. And I need to teach that to the people that work for me as well. So when I find myself, doing too much or very patterned behaviors, time to break it. So social media was a major one for me. And what I did was I run a business from social media. I manage 14 different people or more from my phone because they're forever texting and all of the things. Social media was, I'm posting, I'm responding, all of these things. So I was like, okay, I'm going to move all of my business stuff into the business pages app. I'm going to move it into the Instagram, and only business ones will have notifications because my clients shouldn't have to wait. So only business ones have notifications. Everything else, every other social media, my personal Facebook, notifications are turned off now because that for me is a big thing. If I see a notification, I'm going to check it. You can be like, Meridy, can you Google this? And then I'm distracted looking at the notification I got. So I had to become very conscious. So all of my notifications are turned off unless they're business. Then I needed to move where the apps were on my phone because I was like, okay, I'm going to put Facebook way at the back. That's going to be too much work for me to get. Yeah. So I did that. And in the first couple of weeks, I would go, I totally unconsciously, again, habitual. I would be in my phone and all of a sudden I'm on like WhatsApp. And I'm like, why am I staring at WhatsApp? And then I'd close it. And then I'd look at my screen and I'd be like, oh my God, that's where Facebook was. Oh my God, I didn't realize I had such an addiction. Look at that. I'm going into this app over and over because this is where my Facebook app used to be. So turn off your notifications, move the app, watch yourself, because now you're going to notice yourself using it when you're trying to use it now that it's not there. And so I started that way. And then I started to consciously use it, meaning when I was going to use it, I thought to myself, I should go on social media right now. And then I would prepare myself because COVID made social media a pretty unpleasant place to be for a while. And I would always end up triggered or anxious or upset. So I started to make it a super conscious thing. Okay, I'm going to go on social media and I'm prepared. And started unfollowing things that were triggering me. I started unfollowing things that made me sad or angry. Only followed things that were motivating, happy, that type of stuff. And I really stayed focused on those things in my phone instead. Total game changer for me.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I know, like on my own iPhone here, I have all those.
Oh, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, and I don't care. Like this one says, one says 200. I've had 21 text messages since we started this thing. So you and I.
My child has like 21,000 email messages, and I'm like, how do you?
Yeah.
Can't.
No, and I got to the place that dopamine. I got to get rid of it. Like for some people that are, OCD or whatever, they have to take those out. So you got to move those apps in places like you said where
and then turn them off so they can't notify you. They'll still notify you inside the app. They don't notify you on the outside of the app. That's it.
I love it. Well, Meridy, thank you. This has been so enlightening, so fun. I've enjoyed our conversation. What haven't we talked about? What is it you want to say? Make sure you tell people how to get a hold of you because I want people to. I want to have this conversation again. How, touch back in 6 months or something and say, hey, what have we done? How is the business helping? I want to go to your coal. I got to come to Canada and get some coal lasers so I can candy.
I may have a location in the States opening, so we definitely need to retouch.
Otherwise, I'm gonna get my passport ready.
Heck yeah. We're always down for a visit. We got some Great Lakes, so I encourage you to come.
That's so cool. So yeah, talk to me.
So the one thing that I would love to share with your guys, with your listeners, if this sounds like something that you're interested in doing, one of the ways that I've started working with other people is that I have started partnering. So we give you a license essentially to sell our product and offer our product, and then we just take a commission from it. So if you're interested in that, you already have a business and you're looking to expand that business, a wellness center, a spa, any of those things, we basically, there's a very low startup cost. Plus you pay for me to come to you to train you. It's a very short period of time because a lot of our learning is done online. And then you basically are good to go. You offer the services out of your businesses, and then you just pay us a portion of what you make due to the fact that you've made money off of something that we've offered you. Ways to get a hold of us. If you can't call Canada or text Canada, that's okay. Other ways, WhatsApp does work. 250-571-9879. Our websites are laserquittherapy.ca or laserquit.net, because that'll redirect you as well. And on our websites, there's all the different ways to contact. You actually contact me directly, because even though I'm expanding the business, and the reason I've gone the direction I have is because I don't want to get so big that I'm not still dealing with a lot of the things that are happening within the business. I want it to stay feeling like a small company, no matter how big we get. And that's why I'm looking for these partners, because if you have a business and you want to offer this, you're going to keep that emotional feeling. And then you're also going to, that person keeps in touch with me. And then I have coaches that will work with these people as well. So it's super important to me that even though we're a corporate company, that we also have that family feel. So that's the best way to reach me, guys.
Yeah, no. And like I said, use the WhatsApp. This has been, I got to talk about today. We got to talk about, our addictions and how we feel and our, the personal side of it. I'd love to have you come back and we talk about the business side of it and how you became in business and, really talk about, it's kind of like a franchise and how that works and how you started out and became, the person that you are now and identity and so much more to talk about. And so
oh my God, so much.
So
let's do that in like 6 months or so. And I'm sure in 6 months or so, I'm going to come back and be like, we have all these new locations, jump on board.
Oh man, I love it. Hey, so go ahead and hit subscribe if this has been helpful today. Hit notifications. If this is one of those videos that somebody that this could probably help, and they need to hear this and be able to research it and find out. And so don't be like, oh, I know they need it, but I think they'll think that I'm trying to get them to get better. You are trying to help them get better. And so it's okay. If you're truly their friend, then you shouldn't be upset if they get mad at you for saying, why are you trying to help me? The worst thing they can do is just not listen. Yep. That's the worst thing they can do. But what if they do and their life changes and then they become this person that you've been wanting and long for and say that you were going to try to fix and had no way to fix them? And so when I think about addiction and think about what pain people go through, this is one that you want to make sure that you show people, you let people hear, and you get to do stuff. So it is so fun. Any one closing thought you have before we exit here?
Just know there's always hope.
There's always hope. I love that. Well, thank you, Meridy. I appreciate it. For those of you, I want you to make sure that you believe that. I believe, and I want you to know that you're God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And you, my friend, will look forward to talking to you on the next one. Talk to you later.